Zach, given your background in sponsorship, very successful background, we look at your team as a sort of litmus test of where Formula One is in the economy of sponsorship, or partners, as I guess we all like to call them now. How much would it cost me if my brand was, I don't know, purple? How much would it cost me now to be the title sponsor of your team and change everything to purple?
It would cost a lot because we really don't want to change our color. We certainly don't mind incorporating color. But I think if someone really wanted to take over the team, and we are a commercial enterprise, so there is a number. You're talking 40, 50 million pounds a year. I ultimately have built with our commercial team a business model that, I've stated before, we don't need a title partner. And it doesn't mean that we don't want to sell all the space on the race car, but, I prefer to keep the brand McLaren Racing and not put another brand in front of it. Again, at some point you would. I'd want it to be the right fit, but I also don't think it's necessary for us to get to our revenue projections to have a traditional title sponsor as there's been in the past.
That's what I thought you would say. Well, I didn't actually. I thought you'd say never, but it's good to know that you actually conceded there was a number. The other point, I think, is that I suppose a lot of people would have thought, including you at some point in the past, having lots of different brands on the car is not a great thing. But in reality, again, I got to say, I'm not trying to be sycophantic, but it does look good. All those black wordings on the car and the way you've put them together, it's a whole new world out there, and it looks good on the car and it works. And I guess my next point is, if you can answer the question, if I came to you with $5 million, would I get onto your car?
Yeah, definitely. What's most important to us is that they're great brands and great companies. And, we love the technology space. So we've got great partners like Dell Technologies and Splunk and Darktrace and Aero. Great lifestyle consumer products, the Coca-Colas of the world. So as we have looked to kind of rebuild the racing team on and off the track, we've wanted to be surrounded by great brands. And you're going to have big sponsors, little sponsors, medium-sized sponsors. So to me, it's more about the quality of the company than the size of the check, because you're going to get all different sizes to make up your revenue stream.
And I guess from your point of view, I guess it's fascinating to see how the market is changing in terms of what you can now give a partner. The whole internet world out there, the whole social media world, the whole cyber world. There's a million things now that you're selling that you never used to be able to sell, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, now it's all about content. The sticker on the car is a very important piece. It's how you tell the world that you have a partnership, but it's the content that you develop, whether that's digitally or live. That's what partners want to see now, and kind of have authentic storytelling. So it's no longer just an awareness game. Now it's a relevance and what are you trying to tell me? And that's exciting. We've got a really great marketing department that's about 80 strong, led by Mark Waller, who came from the NFL. He was the CMO of the NFL. And so we really, I think having the background I have of having worked with all the Formula One teams, I think far too many of them are kind of rights sellers, and they do a great job, and they kind of sell their car, and they're great at delivering a good hospitality experience, but they really don't get underneath the partners' objectives. And that's why agencies were created, which was to kind of bridge the gap between, here's what the partner wants and here's what the right seller wants. I've tried to bring that agency approach in-house so we understand how we can drive their business. So I think we're pretty unique in that manner.
Wow, 80 strong. That's 80 in-house.
Yes.
And is that affected in any way by the 2022 cutback regulation?
No, your cost cap is pretty much ring fenced around on track performance. So, those 80 people are made up of digital department, comms department, new business, partnership management, creative, so it's sustainability, diversity. So it's quite a large team.
Speaking of diversity, I mean, all the teams very quickly embraced Black Lives Matter and everything else that we've been doing this year. And you did it in a very graphically cool way as well, I have to say. But I'm interested to get your take on what appears to be your nemesis now, which looks like, if you put it all together, looks like Racing Point. And it kind of started with the brake ducts, and then it's continued since then to the background of you were the first team to identify COVID positive personnel in Melbourne, and it's continuing to this day with some quite weird things going on. I just wondered your take on that.
Yeah, I think if you start with the race car, everyone calls it the pink Mercedes. Everyone's got their own views of how they were able to replicate something that was so close to last year's car. Obviously, with the brake ducts, they lots of commentary around. They have 800 drawings. Well, as it's been uncovered, they do have 800 drawings, but of someone else's brake duct. So that kills credibility. So when that's all come to light, they got penalized and fined for it. It naturally makes you very curious about the balance of the race car. And then when you see COVID, Andreas and I took the very quick and very difficult as a racer, very easy as a responsible CEO to withdraw the team. And we knew the impact was that Grand Prix might go on without us. We took that decision regardless of the outcome. And when you hear comments like they test more than any company on the planet, which I think would be pretty hard to back up that statement, and then you have a driver who's, as they said, not feeling good from Russia, you don't test them. I think it was either past the Tuesday or Wednesday. If you tested more than any other company on the planet, I'd be testing my driver every single day out of responsibility to my race team, their family, because this disease can kill you. And, as it turned out, he had COVID, which is nothing to be ashamed of. Anyone can get it at any time. But, one has to question, was there a strategic decision taken as to why not to test between Wednesday and Sunday? Because you have to ask, had he tested positive, what would that have meant? Probably means you have to isolate a lot of the team. And then you see at the press conference last weekend, Sergio Perez saying that indeed one of his crew members was not in Nürburgring who tested positive. And then you had Upmar saying no one's tested negative other than a few people at the factory. So quite frankly, it all stinks. I don't buy it. I'm calling it as I see it. And, we're all very competitive, but I think you've got to draw a line, your ethical line. And to me, it seems like they've crossed that in a few areas a few too often.
Thanks for calling it as you see it, Zach. Can I just do the same thing very briefly? I wanted to get your reaction to this. When Italy went into lockdown a week before the Australian Grand Prix, I don't know if anybody else did, but I then cancelled all my travel arrangements on the basis that I didn't think there's any way in the world that Grand Prix would then take place. Particularly, I didn't think the Australian or Victorian government would let all the Italians, we're talking Brembo, Toro Rosso, Ferrari, AlphaTauri, and others, into the country at that point. But then I got a phone call from Tim Schenken 2 days later saying, the race is on, get out here. So I went, bought the new tickets and everything else. And I still find it extraordinary that Formula One put itself in a position to want to go ahead and stage that race, given the lockdown that was in Italy at that point. And nobody's making that point. And I think somebody should be called to account for that, to be honest. I don't know what your feeling is about that.
I think it was such a new thing. You know, we weren't sure if it was going to happen. Are we going? Are we not going? But I think in fairness, it was just so new. I think what the industry didn't do well, I'm a little less critical of the fact that we went out there, because at that point, people were still trying to operate, not just in Formula One, but other sports. Where I would be more critical and was critical was I don't think the industry was prepared once we got there. And so when we had our COVID case, Andreas and I at that point didn't say, what should we do? We'd already had that conversation. Right. I think the industry hadn't thought through, what if what happens to McLaren or another team? If that happens, what do we do? And I think what was disappointing was the industry came together Thursday night. It wasn't until 2 o'clock in the morning. Half the teams wanted the race, half the teams didn't. And then Ola stepped in and was kind of the tiebreaker from Mercedes. And then you had the two-seater Friday morning, so you got all the fans stacking up outside the gate. So I'm a little less critical of the fact we made it out there because it was just so new and fresh. What we didn't have as an industry was, if something happens, what are we going to do? And that was the area that I think we, as a sport, were not prepared. But I got to say, give credit to Formula One and the FIA. They've been very prepared. And the fact that we're now 13 races into this with very few cases, lots of travel, different countries, you got to say Formula One and the FIA, jumped on it and didn't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there on that second point. Just closing now, two happy subjects. I think one is, I'm a big Felix Rosenqvist fan. Very happy to see what he's doing now with IndyCar. But I hope that's a little door that's opening now, maybe to get an F1 test at some point. Nobody's ever run him in an F1 car.
No, I think Felix is a huge talent. And don't forget his teammate Pato O'Ward is pretty awesome. So I'm really happy. We had a great season in IndyCar, and I think we're going to have a strong season next year. And I love our driver lineup. So, things have been pretty rough from getting started and not qualifying at Indy. And this year, both in America and Formula One, has been strong. And so hopefully now, while we're going to have our ups and downs, because that's motor racing, we're on our way to this journey to winning races and championships again.
How excited are you about Roger Penske's ownership now of the championship and the Speedway?
Couldn't have happened at a better time and couldn't have been bought by a better individual. Roger Penske is, as many people, my business in racing hero. There's not a better guy out there who understands how racing can benefit business and business can benefit racing. And I think because it's his legacy, he will be building IndyCar and the Indy 500 with a pure passion, which means IndyCar and the Indianapolis 500 are going to be big benefits of Roger's Midas touch.
And finally, Zach, the current Zach Brown stable of speed, any new acquisitions, how's it looking right now?
There's always new acquisitions. My latest, which I've been looking for some time, as I was fortunate enough to get a hold of Michael Schumacher's 97 Ferrari, which I guess I'm going to have to paint orange. And he won Montreal and France in it from pole. And Michael was obviously a legend. Terrible what's happened to him. I'm glad that with what's going on with Lewis, we're kind of celebrating Michael and everything he's accomplished along the way. So that's the most recent toy. And
it's kind of cool that Mick Schumacher's out there doing pretty good things as well.
Yeah, it's going to be good to have him in the sport next year. I believe he'll be in a Haas Formula One car. He seems to be a good talent. A lot to live up to when your last name is Schumacher, but no doubt he'll put on a good show.
Zach, great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. Very best wishes for the upcoming races.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
heard about you long before we met. You're winsome and you're young, at least that's what they said. Underneath your glitter and your gold, you can't deny the fact that you are growing